Hello, reality sandwich community. Kyle, conscious agent, back with another share your experience where we dive into cool thought leaders, conscious people in the space who want to share their plant medicine experiences with us. I'm joined today by the wonderful Prem. Prem, how's it going, my man?
I'm good. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Kyle. How are you doing?
Thank you. I had the honor of absorbing, listening to some of your music over the weekend here. We had a beautiful ceremony here in San Diego. But for those who aren't familiar with your work, could you give us a brief introduction, a little bit about yourself and what you do in the space?
So, in 2000, I went from Los Angeles to Encinitas to join Self Realization Fellowship, which is a yoga retreat monastery. So, I learned meditation and Eastern philosophy, yoga, and at the time, there was a lot of I felt a lot of insecurity and self doubt, as a young 20-year-old would. And I remember asking one of the mentors, like, how do you build self confidence? And he gave me a very straight, very fast answer. He said, meditate. And I actually argued with him. I was like, well, what if you just like learn to forgive people and forgive yourself and express yourself and speak your truth? Wouldn't that help build confidence? And he just had this twinkle in his eye and he's like, maybe. And then he just walked away. I was like, wow. So that started the long journey. That was 25 years ago of meditating every day consistently. And he was right. Turned out that meditation does, in fact, build self confidence. And so you can imagine for that 10-year period from 20 years to 30 years old in a yoga monastery, there's no drugs, there's definitely no plant medicine. And it wasn't until 14 years later that I smoked marijuana for the first time since I was in college. And so that was my first reintroduction into herbs and plants, psychedelic, psychotropic type stuff. And, most people don't have psychedelic experiences on marijuana, but I literally saw tens of thousands of Native American spirits flying around the room, like in the circle. And I had invited them. I didn't see them at the time, but I was sitting down to write a song and I invited them to sing a song through me in honor of their unheard suffering, unheard pain. Because I mean, you can imagine millions of people died and no one was there to witness or acknowledge their story with any level of compassion whatsoever. And I wanted to write a song that would be a vehicle, a conduit, to express that. And in addition to that, honor their knowledge and their wisdom about living in harmony with the land. So I started writing this song called Prayer. And what's wild about that is other people have seen, thousands of Native American spirits fill the room when I sing that song. So it's not just me. And sometimes I don't even say that. And they come back and they tell me they saw that. And I'm just like, whoa, that's wild. So that thus began my appreciation for the utility and the benefit of plant medicine. And then um, after that, I went on a music tour, um, went all over the country, singing music for yoga festivals and yoga studios or, homes or events, any kind of spiritual community events and things like that. And I was introduced to mushrooms at one of those, and this heartbreak kind of came up for me because I left um, a woman that I was dating to go on tour, and then the heartbreak came up from that while I was, coming up on the medicine and this experience of self love in a deeper way than I had ever experienced it. Um, was a blessing through that medicine journey. And um, yeah, so for the last 25 years, I've been cooking professionally, started in that yoga ashram and then did the music touring thing for a while. When I came back, I was like, well, I got to pay bills. So I continued cooking. Then I learned massage therapy. So I became a certified massage therapist. And like we often all do, took other courses, other trainings. So like EFT, like emotional freedom tapping, and learned all about like EMDR, inner child healing, subconscious repatterning. And I worked at the Chopra Center for a while. So I learned 11 different Ayurvedic massage styles in addition to the 10 massage classes that I took in massage school. And now I do a thing called the Whole Being Reset, which is a 5 to 7 hour immersion where we do the inner child healing, breath work, subconscious repatterning, massage, energy healing, sound healing. And people walk out with like a new subconscious network that they can build on and have a different path forward that's empowering versus of disempowering. And uh, yeah, so even tomorrow I'll be doing to about two of those a week. So any time of the week, any day of the week, I might be doing a wedding, catering a wedding, or doing a whole being reset, or giving a massage, or this weekend I did two back-to-back musical gigs. So one plant ceremony, and then yesterday I was teaching Eastern philosophy and meditation with music, and so it's a very dynamic
That's
lifestyle.
it's really beautiful to hear. You've truly done the work. I think a theme that came up for me this weekend when we were working together was, these plant medicines are just a tool. You need to do these other modalities in conjunction with them to truly get the healing, to
Sure.
integrate properly and reflect on all the things that you're looking for.
Hmm. Yeah.
Something, a reoccurring theme when I talk to people like yourself, that share a story, is cannabis. I feel gets left out of the psychedelic conversation when it can be, like you just explained, a psychedelic experience for some. Could we go back to that first cannabis use that you mentioned? Could you set up for me what was the ritual to you taking it, and how you channeled these Native American spirits?
Yeah, good question. So I was living in Encinitas at the time, and I was renting a master bedroom in this beach house, and I'd been listening to Nako and Medicine for the People a lot, and Trevor Hall. And prior to that, I was writing music that was all Sanskrit, and I wanted to write more American music, and so I started being influenced and inspired by that tribe, and met some of them, and some of them stayed at my house, and I even set up a couple concerts, with like 100 of my friends to come and listen to, like Dustin Thomas from Medicine for the People, and um, several of the other band members, and so it was just all of a sudden part of the culture that I was immersed in, and so I prayed, with the medicine in my room, with the I must have been a pipe and some flour, and I prayed, to be inspired and guided, and um, for me to be open and receptive to any teachings that they had. And because why, like why the Native American spirits, well, as some of Nako Bear has Native American blood in his body, and it was just a really popular theme at the time. It was also during the time of the Dakota pipeline, Dakota Access Pipeline conflict. And so I wrote a song called Dakota Access about that. So I wrote a couple songs. And actually, yesterday, when we were on that other journey together, I don't know if you want me to mention what it was online or not, but um, there a lot of it felt like a past life of being a Native American shaman came through and was singing through me during a song that I'd written like 3 days ago, and it was a profoundly like moving experience, and so connecting those two experiences together of yesterday's Native American spirit channeling, and then channeling the first time the Native American spirits while smoking marijuana for the first time in 14 years, or was it, I forget how many, yeah, 14 years. um, there clearly is a lifetime, a powerful um, lifetime where I was sincerely surrendering to spirit and opening to messages and guidance, and listening to how can I help with the wisdom of the elders that was coming through. So something I'm now paying more attention to. And it wasn't much of a ritual other than a prayer, surrender, smoking it, listening. I mean, after meditating for 25 years, you learn to listen and be teachable and coachable and surrender. So that's I think that's what I can say about that.
Beautiful. Do you currently still use cannabis in a ritualistic setting, or what is your current kind of regimen?
Um, Not in a ritualistic setting, and I don't smoke it very often, mostly because it makes me cough a lot.
Mhm.
So sometimes I'll have an edible, if I'm going to like a hot springs or something. And a lot of my work is labor intensive, whether it's massage or event catering, and a lot of the planning is very cerebral, so it helps me just get back in my body. And so whilst I don't use it on a daily basis, and I have to say I have been around a few people who have been using it daily since they're like 12, and I noticed that um, there there's a lot of drama and conflict, at least with those two individuals that I experienced. And I remember seeing an entity around a girlfriend who had been smoking every day since she was 12. And so I was meditating and went into a higher state of consciousness, which means my five senses are not online, but I'm seeing with my spiritual eye. And I saw, entities just trying to fuck with me. And around her. And so I woke up and I was like, "Did you smoke today?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "It's like I told you, I don't really want to be around that. Like you can do it on your own time, but I don't want to be in the same room if you're doing it." And she's like, "I'm sorry," but it's like you have company. That's a thing. Point is, like all plant medicines, it shouldn't be abused, right? It's like use it, don't abuse it,
Mhm.
and otherwise it'll abuse you. Some. It was actually a Native American grandmother who told me that when I was at a festival playing music, and we were in her teepee, and she was teaching us about sage and marijuana and tobacco, and she said tobacco is actually the most powerful medicine of them all. But if you abuse it, it'll abuse you. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, that makes a lot of sense. I think it applies to marijuana too.
Have you used tobacco in a ritualistic or medicine setting?
Um, Only with Native Americans and sweat lodges specifically. Like I haven't been trained by them. I've just been around them and have been, you know, praying with them while they use it. So they use the smoke to send prayers up to spirit, and they sing into the tobacco and they pray into the tobacco. So that's kind of the ritual that they use it for. And then there's usually a hawk feather, an eagle feather involved as well. And then most recently, I was talking to the chief of an Amazonian tribe. I think it's called the Ayawana. I'm having trouble saying that name, but the Amazonian tribes that facilitate ayahuasca, they sometimes come, and so I got to speak with a chief. Was like 2 weeks ago, and I was just in a it was a recording studio where he was at the Wise Castle, which is in Solana Beach. It's like a castle with a recording studio in it. And he sat down. He says, "I want to talk to you." And I was like, "What?" Didn't know why he wanted to talk to me. I didn't speak more than one sentence with him, and he closed the door and kicked everyone out. So it was just me and him for like an hour and a half talking about his past and his life, and then he got his hape out, ground tobacco, and this long like deer horn hape, um, what do you call it, a pipe, and he blew it in my nose, and then we prayed together and gave thanks. So that was and then he gave me this beautiful like beaded kind of headband thing, and I gave him this necklace that I got from a Polynesian temple priest. So I don't know what the meaning of all that was, but I was like, man, this guy didn't even know it and never seen an airplane till he was 30 years old, or was it 18 years old? Yeah. So,
As I'm sure you know, music seems to play a huge role in medicine ceremony when working with a lot of these plant medicines. Could you talk about your experience, uh, how music has impacted people you've worked with, and what you bring when you're sitting down with ceremony, and the importance of music and the vibration?
that's a really good question. The tradition that I was taught in was, like I was saying earlier, Hindu, not actually Hindu, a yoga monastery. So we're learning monastery. Most people don't know that there's a difference between yoga and Hinduism, and Hinduism doesn't come from yoga or vice versa. Um, Yoga is the science of self realization, and it's an eightfold system, which includes the asana postures and study, which is jnana yoga, or service to others, which is karma yoga. And then there's another kind of yoga called mantra yoga, so just repeating mantras without singing. Then there's japa yoga, which is shorter mantras. You can go on a walk and just say like 3 words, or you can sit down and use your beads, do mantra yoga. And then there's my favorite, which is bhakti yoga, bhakti meaning devotion. And of course, the easiest way to access devotion is to sing, you know. So if you're singing to a girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever, um, that's bhakti. That's the Sanskrit word for devotion. That same devotion can be applied to your divine romance with spirit. And the way that bhakti yoga is practiced is through a thing called kirtan, Kirtan. And kirtan means devotional group chanting in Sanskrit. And the format is a call and response. So I'll call a one sentence and then people will call it back. And that way, instead of being a music performance, which is often the case, even in a lot of plant medicine ceremonies, it becomes a group experience where everyone can sing together, because the phrases are so simple and the melodies are simple. And so you can, listen to one round of a verse, a chorus, and then pick it up. And then next thing you're singing the verse and chorus too. And then the tempo might pick up or the melodies might change. And what that does is it opens the heart, to sing together, and it focuses the mind because the words are so simple. And by doing that, you're able to focus on the present tense and the now, which is where spirit lives, rather than in the past or in the future or in a restless mind thinking other thoughts. So it's a very powerful tool to lock into the now, where love exists and peace exists and bliss exists. And so throughout the course of a kirtan, which could last an hour, I mean, I've done it for up to 5 hours in the mountains with different yogi friends, under the stars, you could get into like an ecstatic trance, like literally go into ecstasy and get high from singing to the divine. And it's a beautiful path because everybody values a loving relationship and falling in love. With bhakti yoga, you get the opportunity to have a divine romance with love itself, and it's a lot safer and more predictable and reliable and hoping, wishing, and expecting for unconditional love from an imperfect human. We're imperfect too, so we mess up too, and our beloveds sometimes mess up or don't meet our expectations or don't know how to talk to us in the way we want to. But if we learn to tap directly into the source of love, which flows through these different humans, then we, cut out the middleman, so to speak. And so on a daily basis, being able to sing to God and then be quiet and meditate on that love that we've created, and then enjoy that divine romance, we can then have that to share with others and bring to others in relationship, and also in plant medicine ceremonies. So I'm sharing the divine romance that I'm experiencing, throughout the week with the people in the group, some of which who have never been exposed to that, or much less heard Sanskrit or been exposed to the idea of a divine romance through music. and that opens up a portal so that their soul can contact spirit as well. And that can be a deeply transformational experiences. For example, I've had people with heartbreaks come in, and that's actually one thing that I do too, is like heartbreak coaching, because there's so much you can learn when you're feeling heartbroken. You're receptive and willing and paying attention. People have said they've seen blue fires, like blue astral fires in the middle of the circle. Some people have been transported out of their bodies into different, landscapes, like snow, walking in the snow with, a bald head and some Buddhist clothes on. Like a woman said that to me once, to traveled, to a past life. Another guy said he was transported to the desert and had this long tunic on, like the long clothes that they wear to protect their limbs from the sun. And he had like this headgear, head wrap and long tunic. And he just stopped and looked at the sky and was marveling at how blue the sky was. Um, but more than anything, people get a chance to connect with God or the divine in their own way. And I really emphasize the distinction between Hinduism and yoga, because yoga, including bhakti yogas, whether it's um, in a yoga setting or in a Hindu temple or a yoga retreat or a plant medicine ceremony or just at home or driving in your car, it's for everyone. Like yoga is for everyone. And so no matter what anyone's faith is or belief system, these are simply tools, because you could be singing in, English or um, Arabic or Chinese or Greek, as long as you're singing with devotion in a way that's easy, that's just a few words, maybe like 4 sentences repeatedly, like a mantra, repeating again and again and again with like that intense devotion for the divine, whatever that means to the individual. It'll take you out of your 5 senses and into the absolute realms, of consciousness. And that's where you get peace, love, joy, ecstasy, truth, wisdom, light, bliss. And those are the things we get to take with us when we, leave this mortal frame, because you can't keep this personality, this persona. Nobody's going to remember who the hell Prem was or history. No one's going to care. But all of the love that was shared between people, um, the consciousness that was able to expand my awareness of self in terms of being, which is all, just be, that'll remain. And uh, that's really the heart of yogas, eternal bliss consciousness. And that Satchitananda is 3 words: Sat, eternal; Chitta, consciousness, and then Ananda, bliss, Satchitananda. And that's the goal of all traditions, all spiritual, even somebody who's got a lust for money or women or fame or reputation. What we're actually all seeking is eternal bliss consciousness. Some things are temporary. Everything in this world is temporary. But if you seek something that's not of this world, not from these 5 senses, and not temporary, then you can have that, truth of spirit, of the soul that is a reflection of eternal bliss consciousness.
Really beautifully put. I'd love to explore deeper with you if you don't mind sharing one of these ecstatic experiences and how, the music that you were playing or experiencing channeled this ecstasy. Was there one particular, mountain hike experience that you went to with the group that really, unlocked that for you?
Well, it's important first to understand that that type of experience usually requires the 5 senses to be shut off. So when you're in ecstasy and the 5 senses are shut off, that's called samadhi. And the light and the sound that you experience is not with your ears or your eyes. Usually they're closed anyways, but it's perceived through your astral brain, the 1,000-petaled lotus, or your third eye, which is also your pineal gland. And so that's why meditation is such an important part of, any kind of spiritual or religious or even animistic, uh, any kind of path of truth, really. One has to learn how to quiet the mind and still the heart to perceive the silence between thoughts and the reality beyond the senses. Singing, kirtan, which isn't a thing that's exclusive to yoga or Hinduism, by the way. I mean, when people are in a Christian church and they all know the words and they're singing together, that technically, by definition, is kirtan. When people are in Africa singing together, they all know the songs and it's the spirit. Or Native Americans doing it, that's another form of kirtan. And it's also the most common thing in all spiritual and religious traditions is to sing together. And that's just the first step. So to open the heart and focus the mind, and then bring that chant. The science of kirtan is to bring that chant. Uh, of course, you get to a high state, you might sing loud and you might get into the higher melodies and the rhythm might go faster, but eventually you want to bring it back down and lower the voice and slow down the rhythm, and then whisper it and then take it deep inside your heart and your mind into a devotional practice where you're repeating the 3 or 4 words with devotion as a love offering to the divine, making love to love, making love to the divine, having that divine romance. And in that process, the 5 senses shut down. And then you can start to perceive lights and, the Om or ecstasy. And so the predictable thing is to hear the Om. If you can do that, you'll hear the sound of God. And I've heard it different ways. I've heard it blasted into my medulla oblongata back here. It's just like, Om, which is startling at first. And then you feel it here as like an intense ecstasy. Imagine 10,000 orgasms at once in your third eye or your heart or all over your body, every cell of your body, and your consciousness just expanding into infinity. That's called Om Samadhi. You could also have a light samadhi or just ecstasy itself without light or sound. So the manifestation of God in these yogic practices is going to be either sound, typically is Om, or one of the sounds of your chakras, because all these chakras have different sounds. Like the first chakra at the root of the base of the spine is like a sound of a bumblebee, like bzzz, and you feel that vibrating at the base of your spine. It's very real. It's kind of like plugging your finger into an electrical socket. It doesn't hurt, but it's powerful. And the Om, coming in through the medulla, that's extremely powerful. It can be very loud and startling. And so first time I experienced that, I was actually scared and it hurt. It hurt the back of my head, and it happened many times. And instinctively, I prayed, I trust you, God. I love you, God. I trust you, God. I love you, God. And just as this is happening, surrendering to this experience. And eventually that pain turned into ecstasy. And what happened is the energy channels just opened up bigger and wider to allow more of that etheric or pranic energy to move through my body. And the longer I looked at the third eye, the longer it would last. So if I just kept my gaze pointed at the third eye, that would keep the ecstasy going. And that was something that was, been able to do regularly for a number of years. And I could tell you a lot of experiences about that, but this is the path of the mystic, and it's not something just for yogis. I mean, you have Sufis, who have their own path, but theirs involves dancing and singing too. Africans do. Everyone's got their own version of this, but mysticism is a thing. And then eventually that leads to, being a saint after some lifetimes. And then eventually after several lifetimes of being a saint, which means you're able to see the light, hear the Om, feel the bliss at will. Then you become a master, and then then you can help others and, just slap their forehead and off they go into ecstasy. And so if you ever get a chance to be around a master, that's the benefit of being around a true master. And there's only a handful. You can probably count them on your hands.
Very well put. Sounds like a really beautiful. Again, I'm impressed with the education and the work that you put in to be able to share this beauty and this medicine with everyone.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Quick,
It's an honor.
going, we can keep this pretty vague, but for the ceremony we participated in together, what was the preparation like? How do you choose? What songs you either feel creative to write for that particular ceremony, or how do you prepare for each particular ceremony you're going to be helping with?
Well, most of my experiences in singing for groups has been not in plant ceremonies. So that was my second time doing it, and most of the
You fooled me. You were professional.
well, I've been playing music for like 23 years or something, maybe longer, since I was 7. So a long time, probably 30 some years. Uh, I thought, okay, this is a medicine from Peru, and I've been to Peru. I got to sing for uh, Huachuma San Pedro retreat for 10 days in the Sacred Valley in Pisac and met shamans there and learned from them and listened to some of the songs in different areas. And also, but I was singing like English and kirtan, Sanskrit. But I'm becoming and have become more aware that this culture, this plant medicine culture, is really heavily influenced currently with Spanish songs and Portuguese songs, and of course the Yawa. I have such trouble with that tribe, Ayawana tribe in the Amazon, and that's a whole different language. And ultimately, I don't think it matters because they were, it's not like people thousands of years ago in Peru or Ecuador or Colombia or wherever were speaking Spanish. That wasn't until a few hundred years ago, um, or Sanskrit. They weren't speaking Sanskrit, but I chose some popular songs that I know people have been listening to in Spanish, and with Monique, learned them and practiced them, rehearsed. Um, but I have lots of songs that I could choose from. Some are reggae, some are rocks, and so I chose the ones that were more kind of spiritual and mellow that I felt would be appropriate for a more introspective kind of plant ceremony. And we picked it up a little bit sometimes, but for the most part, it was kind of like mellow, devotional. And then um, when it was in flow, I really opened up and was able to channel, like we were saying earlier, that some Native American consciousness. And then I noticed I was singing in a way that people had never heard before, that Sanskrit kind of repeated mantras and different melodies. And that spoke to people. I don't know. But there's power in Sanskrit. There's power in the sense that Sanskrit is one of the root languages of all Indo-European languages and some Germanic languages. And so that's, and they say, the people that teach Sanskrit, that there's a vibratory power, much like we would think of a wizard's spell, that can bless the environment around you. Like there's mantras for healing the physical, natural world around you. There's mantras for financial prosperity. There's mantras for protection. So um, there's real power in that. So it's a mixture of Sanskrit songs and English songs because it is important to be able to connect with your mind. Like, okay, this is what we're saying. And then some Spanish songs. And I try to explain a little bit sometimes what I'm singing before I sing it so people can connect more deeply with it.
Beautiful. Another key factor was the food. Food can be an ecstatic experience, help unlock some things inside of us. Could you talk about your rituals, and again how you prepare for when you're sharing your gift of food and preparation with a ceremony or with your audience that you work with?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I was the head chef for Self Realization Fellowship for 10 years. And so I was making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 to 50 guests 3 times a day, 5 days a week, and everyone from a different culture. So I had to learn how to make the best foods from each country so that everyone would be happy, because this environment, there's no women, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol. There's a movie night once a month, but people aren't really going out unless they need to go like get toothbrush and toothpaste and some, necessary essentials. So I learned how to make the most popular dishes from each country, and the philosophy of making food in a monastery, in a yoga monastery, is to um, do everything for God. And it's just, not just the chef in the kitchen who's doing that. It's anyone who's like, I mean, this was a 40-acre self-sustaining community in the country, right? So we had orchards and like vegetable gardens and flowers everywhere, koi ponds, waterfalls, 40 acres of oaks and boulders, cabins. So there's housekeeping department, auto department, wood shop, the main office, and on, all the different departments you need to make a self-sustaining community function. And so everyone there is working in silence and dedicating each action to the divine as a love offering. So one thing we would often say is for God and Guru, for God and Guru, for God and Guru. Or, my favorite was simply like, I love you, God, I love you, God, I love you, God, I love you, God. And I had a yogi come in from Florida one time, this kind of guy. He could just look up at his spiritual eye and go into bliss and hear the Om at will. He was a saint. And he wrote a book on how to practice the presence with sports. So he would teach people how to practice the presence, whether they're surfing or riding motorcycles or windsurfing, kayaking. He had this RV that he would travel around the country teaching people and sharing his book and giving talks. And the RV had, surfboards and kayaks and bikes, and then a trailer with his motorcycle on there and other kind of crazy stuff. This is one of the wildest people that I ever met. He's about 6'3", big beard, really intense look. And he came in the kitchen and just decided he's going to teach me how to practice the presence. And he said, first thing is you got to slow down. And from the point of view, like, I'm calmly active, I'm actively calm. Every action that we do, whether it's cooking or, making furniture or something like that, to be the witness rather than identify with your hands and your body and your mind, but rather be the observer and watch your hands as these are God's hands. And if there's a tomato, this is God. If there's a knife, that's God. And you're just watching, God slicing himself or herself in various expressions as a part of the whole. So it becomes like this expansive experience of unity rather than, getting caught up in your own mental, spin outs and getting restless or upset that someone's doing this or not doing that. And in order to better practice the presence of the divine, slowing down is a first part of that. And then as you're slowing down and witnessing, then doing it with love and devotion as an offering to that unity, that consciousness. And so that's something that I still do, whether I'm catering a wedding or making food for, plant medicine ceremonies. Everything's done with that presence and devotional intentionality.
Beautifully put. Prem, I want to thank you for sharing today. Where can people follow you? Where could they book you for their events or cater their events? And what's exciting in your world that you have coming up?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a whole lot more music lately. And there's a link tree on my Instagram. So Instagram would be Prem, Prem, Maurel. And that link tree will take people to the event catering site, to the music site, which is premmusic with a K.com. There's a massage site, like a massage booking site, where I offer either, deep tissue massage for 1 or 2 hours, or there's the whole like 5-hour whole being reset experience that there's a link for heartbreak coaching. So that link tree will have all of those down. If you don't have Instagram and you want one of those, just email me at info@chefprem.com, and then I'll direct you to whichever service you're most interested in.
Prem, thank you for sharing today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle. It was an honor. Thanks for the opportunity.